and welcome to another episode of Music Crusaders. My name is JJ. I got my fellow metalhead co-host here, Caleb.
Hello.
All right, and today we're so excited to have Dani from Cradle of Filth on the show. Let's bring him in now. Dani, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, hello.
Welcome. To start off, Cradle of Filth has released a brand new album called Existence is Futile, which I have been playing on repeat, by the way, so it's absolutely fantastic. But, you know, despite the name of the title might suggest, you guys actually wrote this album before the pandemic. Is that correct?
Well, believe it or not, you know, shit did go down before this came along with the human race. And yeah, it was written beforehand. The pandemic did afford us the opportunity to spend a little bit longer than we anticipated on it, which is obviously a good thing. But no, it was finished probably 4 or 5 months before the lockdowns happened.
Wow, man. Yeah. So, and you guys had a ton of time to record, but that was also, you know, some of you were stuck in lockdown. Is that right? Or so it took a while, or?
Yeah, well, fortunately, our drummer had come into the studio because the studio's in England, and our drummer and one of our guitarists are both from the Czech Republic. So we were lucky that he had put the drums down first. Otherwise, it would have been a bit tricky. Otherwise, yeah. Then the lockdowns happened. So the other guitarist from the Czech Republic, Ashok, couldn't get him for another 5 months. So we kind of had a nitpick at it. We had everything demoed, so I was just happy as a shit, just sitting there with the producer, like honing the vocals, improving the song structures. Yeah, it was a trying time, but actually, is it wrong to say I really enjoyed it?
Yeah, you get to take your time. Yeah, no, I can definitely see that would be enjoyable. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Caleb.
No, when you're writing and stuff, when do you select what's the overall theme of the album's going to be?
That's a tricky question, really. It depends. It depends how the material's shaping up. I can't remember the actual moment I went, you know, this is what the theme's going to be. It kind of grows into it. It's an organic process. There's never a given moment as such. There's never anything in before, really. It's like there isn't a certain way of writing material either, other than, you know, the tools in which you use to do it. It's kind of circumstance, as in it's influenced by all manners of things. This particular album, I guess, was influenced by the fact that we were 3 years on the road and touring some obviously big places, bustling places, big metropolises. Yeah, it just felt a little suffocating, like the world was heading toward a crisis, possibly due to overpopulation. Yeah, and it threw up a kind of existentialism, I guess. And seeing as the album needed to have a little modern slant to it, considering the timescapes of the previous 2 records, you had Hammer of the Witches, which was medieval based, and Cryptoriana, which is to do with the Victorian society's addiction to the macabre, then it only seemed fair that they should step one closer to the modern world. And I guess the amalgam of those 2 situations, being on tour, the existentialism led to this.
Excellent. Yeah, no, I can't imagine, you know, having a bit of a prophetic, you know, writing experience and then having that all come out with the pandemic. Yeah, so you guys have released 2 amazing music videos, and I was curious too, like, so when I'm sure, you know, a lot of the storytelling aspect begins with writing the lyrics for the song, but how much of the story elements of the music video come afterwards, after the song is released?
Well, they kind of, again, it's organic. Like, we wanted to shoot 2 videos, and for the benefit of the band and, you know, to be cost effective, having to fly everybody in from around the world, we shot them back to back. So obviously from the off, we wanted to make them as different and as stylistic and cinematic as possible. Both songs are vastly different in nature, so that was easy enough. So we just experimented with color schemes and affixed more of a storyline to the second video, Necromantic Fantasies, given the subject matter. And then we hoped that would differentiate them enough. So we just expand as we go along. Obviously, people come up with ideas and you like banter backward and forward, and you knock things about until something sticks.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I love the music videos. And I feel like they've gotten, like you said, much more cinematic as the band has gone on.
Producing a third one. I don't know how cinematic it's going to be because, again, another organic process, and it's sometimes somewhat difficult during the pandemic, during these times, obviously, because you've got to get everybody together, and everything's more expensive because people aren't working as much. It's all that stuff, all the threads behind the carpet that nobody sees, like studios, director. Actually, the director worked his arse off for both these videos, and he's got to be commended because, I mean, he was a visionary, really. He was the guy that actually was behind the camera, and that's Vicente Cordero, whom we're using for this third video.
Okay. All right. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Can you spoil at all? Tell us what the next music video is going to be, or is that secret?
Well, it's for the track "How Many Tears Will Nurture a Rose."
Oh, okay.
About all I can dive up.
All right. Okay. Well, Caleb, I'll let you get in here before I hog all the time.
That's one thing that's always drawn me to y'all as well, is just the consistency of what you're trying to represent. You continually do it, not just visually in the music videos, but as well as thematically throughout the albums, and you keep that constant flow throughout the whole entire album, where you can keep a constant state of mind through it instead of just being thrown around. Like you build a scenery for the entirety of the album. You mentioning the somatic part of the music videos, like it's a nice carryover from your musical aspect as well. But I was gonna ask for the album art, do you just find somebody and like pick something they already have, or do they use your material and try to base it off of that?
Well, this album's artwork was implemented by Arthur Bazins. He's a Latvian contemporary artist, very famous in Europe. He actually undertook both our previous two albums, and we kind of saw this album as being a culmination of a triptych, like 3 records that are kind of, I suppose, linked by the fact there were Nuclear Blast records. It was a new lineup when we began the first of the 3, and just it enables us to sew things up and then move off into another direction, maybe. But that's why we brought the artist on board. Obviously, the pandemic afforded us plenty of time, so I just gave him all the lyrics, all the finished lyrics, the theme of the album, and we basically batted ideas backward and forward. He sketched ideas out, settled upon the Rodimus Bosch imagery for the front, because the main character, that sort of strange, demonic, insectile creature eating people's souls, was based on the hawk-headed god on the right-hand triptych of the Garden of Earthly Delights by Rodimus Bosch, which is one of my favourite artists, and a painting I studied at school in further education. So I think he knew that. So he thought that would be a great way to interpret mankind's descent. And then you have the flaming Tower of Babel in the background. So basically he just went away, and I mean, the guy's a visionary anyway, so pretty much 70% he was left up to his own devices, And obviously he's done this amazing walk through throughout the booklet and the subsequent vinyl extras and everything like that. Yeah, I mean, his work's very cinematic, our music's very cinematic, and I think the two go very hand in hand, hence why we decided to use him again.
Oh yeah, because it looks great, and like you're saying, the little pamphlet part of it, like everything, just fluid, looks amazing. A very good job.
Yeah, he's great.
You go ahead, JJ.
Yeah, so yeah, like we were talking about, I like how everything is consistent in just kind of this homage to just fine art in a way. So the music videos, the cover art, and of course the music as well. But not only that, your lyric writing as well. So Caleb and I are both writers, and so I think we especially can appreciate, beautiful writing. And so I assume, do you do a lot of reading that helps inspire the writing, or is that, mostly inspired, from your own experiences?
A bit of everything, really. Like I said, it's not a process that I've got nailed down, other than sitting, jotting down notes in like this leather-bound notebook that I carry around everywhere, and then working behind a computer in my office. That's pretty much it. Like I say, inspiration can come from anything, and can strike you anywhere. So that's henceforth I always walk around with a notebook. But yeah, I don't read as much as I ought to. I used to. But I think this album was more from experience than anything. Like I said, garnered from being 3 years on and off on the road. 2019, which is obviously the last year. We finished our touring November the 1st, 2019, and that year, despite finishing 2 months before the end of the year, was our busiest ever. I can't remember how many. We did 150 odd shows, I think, that year.
Oh, word.
Everywhere, and it was just a culmination of like 3 years of world touring, and that was the catalyst for the lyricism mainly. Again, yeah, I mean, I dipped my nose into some books about existentialism and philosophy and what have you, and but literally I just dipped my nose into them. I actually found a lot of them quite exasperating because they're other people's opinions.
Yeah.
I had a question about your vocals. Are you gonna keep trying to add different screams or different pitches or anything, or you feel like you're kind of where you want to be?
Well, again, it's people ask that about the music, and we don't hone our music to fit into any given genre, really. Obviously, we're an extreme metal band, that much is obvious, but the album's full of riffs that you might liken to hardcore, black metal, new wave of British heavy metal, traditional heavy metal, power metal, whatever. I mean, we don't really think much about labels as such. I mean, they're there just to find stuff in record stores, and if you can find a record store, you'd be lucky nowadays anyway. So I think genre descriptions are just out of the window in regards to us. I mean, although we obviously are not of the same stature, nobody refers to Metallica by, divisive and decisive names. Nobody refers to Iron Maiden as, oh, do you know that British new wave of British heavy? I mean, it's Iron Maiden, and you know who they are, and that's how. It's an honor if people, recognize Cradle as such. But that's literally how we approach our music, how I approach the lyricism, how I approach the vocals. If we think it sounds good, then so be it. It's kind of, whatever ingredients make up that big tasty cake.
Yeah.
Amazing. So talking about, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just with the vocal stuff. I was just curious if you're training your vocals for anything else, if you're gonna add to that in that sense. That's mostly what I was.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, I have a rehearsal place that I go into. Like if we're going to go on tour, I'll be in there for at least 2 weeks before. Same for if we're heading toward an album and we have songs that I need to sing along or work on. The same thing applies. I've got some ideas for newer songs and maybe slightly different vocally. Thing is, I kind of know what people say about vocals anymore. Because I used to get a lot of shit about, oh, we can't do this anymore. All these, I way prefer the vocals on Dusk, and it's like, well, good you do, because I don't, and henceforth I'm singing the way I do now. I want everything to be articulate. Yeah, I think it's all very well and good doing, you know, high pitched, really brutal vocals, but I also find it quite childish if you can't understand a word that they're saying. You know, you might as well put a background or a power drill. And I think that's the hardest thing about vocalizing, especially for a screamer, is to make everything audible and understandable. That's really is the hardest thing. Anybody can scream. A baby can scream without hurting its voice. It's about longevity, flavour of the album, and just, yeah, basically just doing what we want think's good enough. Obviously, we pay attention to what fans would like or what we think they would like.
I don't know why it took so long to get in. All right, we'll fix all that later. But here, Danny.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Anything you want to start out with straight out the gate about the new album? Anything you feel it needs to be said?
Just ask me questions.
Alrighty. Well, JJ gave me a couple of questions to ask you first, so I'll just go ahead and let her questions be asked. She wanted to know a little bit more about your iconic, the Dani Filth scream. And are you aware just how many kids are out there typing into Google how to scream like Dani Filth? And was there anyone you were trying to imitate, or were you just trying to develop it as it went?
I don't know. I was always a big fan of a band called Razor. Had very high-pitched screams. And Massacre, Cam Lee, I suppose, King Diamond, bit of Tom Araya. It was just a natural progression. It's very hard to explain to people even how to do it. And I'm not going to do it now because it needs a bit of warming up to do it. Like, people would ask me all the time, like, say, right, we just jump into singing mode. It's like, it doesn't work like that. If you can do it just like that, on and off, then you're doing it wrong. So yeah, it's you have periods where you do go through, you know, you have a singing period and then you have a rest period. And that's the way to keep your voice good for, well, thus far 30 years.
Yeah, goodness. That's what's crazy, like how long you've been doing this and how you've maintained yourself as well as adding to it. Like you never really lost what you represent or what you're bringing and how you're doing it, but you've added.
I just changed it over the years to suit my own taste, really. A lot of people say, well, why don't you sing like you did on Dusk and Embrace and that? And it's like, well, I just literally do not want to. I sing them live, but it's a case of wanting to, as you get older, you want, or as I got older, I just wanted people to hear the actual lyrics and be a bit more musicianship, you know, musicianly about the whole singing thing and the interaction with the band and the different flavors it brings to the music.
Yeah, for sure. And to touch on what you were talking about as well with the screaming, a lot of people think it's they don't realize how much it really coexists with actually regular clean singing. Like you can't just start up and start belting out a note. Like you have to warm up, you have to do your scales and whatever your natural thing is to warm up your instrument. And like you're saying, you can't just jump out and start doing it. Like it's an actual talent. It's an actual thing that you've cultivated and formed into what it is. It's not something that you can just do.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. So she also wanted to ask, Cradle of Filth just got back on the road. What was it like that moment you hit the stage again for the first time after the pandemic?
It was brilliant. Everybody was, the crew and the band alike were very eager to get out and perform. It was great being back in the States. Obviously, the first time we'd actually travelled, well, that's not necessarily true. We travelled to Ireland to get our visas. We had to get some really special visas for America. Cost us a lot of money. Fortunately, they're valid for the next 3 years. So fingers crossed that there's not going to be any more lockdowns, despite all these new variants rearing their ugly heads. But America was fun. It was hard work circumnavigating the stormy seas that were the COVID protocols that were in place, like nobody backstage, everybody wearing masks, local crew wearing masks, PCR tests. Yeah, we had both our support acts came up positive, and things had to be, moved around and reallocated, and it was a real pain in the arse, but we got through it. I think we were one of the few bands that actually remain unscathed throughout the entire thing, and I don't know why that is. I mean, we were visiting a few places. Obviously, naturally here in England, everything had gone back to normal, so maybe we just had strong antibodies or what have you. But yeah, getting back on stage was amazing, and we've got good plans to come back next year. I can't announce them now because they're all,
lining it all up.
I have to do it via the booking agent and everything, but we're definitely coming back to the States on 2 different separate runs next year.
Hopefully you head back down through Houston. I missed y'all. I got overwhelmed with work, and I came to work one day, and a guy came in, and he was like, "Hey, saw Cradle of Filth this weekend." I'm like, "They were fucking in Houston?" Like, like I was pretty upset. But you mentioned the other bands that tested positive and stuff. How do you go about selecting those to open for y'all? Is that something that was already predetermined, or do you actually get to listen to a couple of bands and say, "Hey, I want them to be there"? Or
yeah, we get suggestions from our management company and from the booking agent, and we see just what works best. And sometimes it's stuff that doesn't particularly fit into one's own genre. I think it's more interesting to have a selection of bands that obviously, you wouldn't have put out a reggae outfit and,
no.
a fusion band, Cradle of Filth, but stuff that gives people a broader spectrum than just 3 bands that sound completely the same. So yeah, we do have a hand in it, naturally. I mean, if there's a band we really didn't want to be on the tour, we would obviously interject and say no. If there's someone that we really want and they're available, well, that's the trouble. Half the time I write a big list of all the bands I'm into or upcoming bands, and 9 out of 10, they're just not available for travel, or they've got something else on, or they're busy, already out on their own stuff in the studio, or their members can't make it. So it's trial and error, really. It's great though when you actually get a bill you're totally into, and I really enjoyed the bill we had. Until it dissipated due to the infection.
Oh yeah, the never mind. That was bad off. She wanted to ask. She heard rumors that y'all were planning on a live stream concert at a castle in Transylvania. Is that true, or
we absolutely were. We are doing a Dusk in Her Embrace full album, and then like a secondary set with mostly dominated by our new album, with a couple of other tracks thrown into the smelting pot. That's going to be, I believe, February the 14th, Valentine's. But yeah, we were looking at this castle, and it just got so ridiculous. We would have to airdrop and freight a load of equipment over there. One of the castles had a 1/4 mile worth of steps to walk up. We got to quite in depth on the planning stage, but it just worked out just too difficult. Some of the people there, some were very helpful, some not so helpful. But in the end, it was just purely about logistics, cost, and also Eastern Europe is kind of experiencing another wave of the pandemic at present, so that was also another problem. the fact of quarantining in and out, it would make no financial sense.
Okay.
Great idea. And hopefully when this clears, we'll be able to pursue it further.
Oh yeah, like I was just thinking about it of myself. It's like with y'all's ability to bring in so many different elements and themes and stuff, and then mix that in with like a Gothic castle-esque. Like I can only imagine what y'all would be able to do. Now I could also see y'all wouldn't really be sitting in one spot. I'd imagine y'all be going throughout the whole castle for different sets and songs.
Yeah, we had great plans for it. Unfortunately, they'll just have to be put on hiatus for the moment.
That's crazy. That's awesome though. Hopefully it happens. Sounds great. All right, let's talk about existence is futile. When about did you start creating the concept for the album, or first lyrics, or?
Well, we were on tour for 3 years, pretty much on and off. 2 years for our previous album, Critoriana, and then we extended that when we re-released the Cruelty and the Beast remistressed version, which was essentially the first album plus that album plus Hallowed Be Thy Name, remixed and remastered from the original tapes, which was a lot of fun. So that extended the touring period to 3 years, and in that time we went around the world, about 3 or 4 times, and our travels just inspired the subject matter of the album, which is existentialism. And yeah, we basically just picked at the album, had the majority of it written by the time we finished on 1st of November 2019, and I believe we were in the studio shortly after Christmas. So yeah, the pandemic also helped things a little, because although we couldn't get musicians in from Scotland and from the Czech Republic for a while, our drummer had fortunately just laid his drums down shortly before the lockdowns ensued. So we were very lucky in that respect. And yeah, the pandemic afforded us, more time than we would be used to in the studio. Just me and the producer were locked in there for a couple of months in a very idyllic countryside environment, nobody about, even more isolated than it was before. Weather was fantastic, although we didn't really notice it because we were stuck inside a box. But yeah, it was a very creative period. Really enjoyed it. And it's something that I don't think will probably happen to that extent again, because I don't think we ever will have a window of that size without people like the record company, management, touring, commitments breathing down our neck and say, oh, you know what, the album's got to be, you said the album's going to be finished in a month and you're not on schedule. So yeah, it was a pleasant experience. Really enjoyed it.
Speaking of, how does that process work? Do you tell the label, like, we'll give you an album every 5 years, or whenever you start up, you start the process with them so they're prepped for whenever you give them material, they can start pushing it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously if we left it for 10 years, they'd be probably scratching their heads and the phone would be off the hook asking you where your album is. But yeah, generally you say, right, we're going into the studio. This is the scheduling, rough scheduling, obviously, and try and keep it as rough as possible. So our record label is German based, and you know what the Germans are like, very very on it. And yes, so yeah, we basically work out scheduling, a plan between the label and booking agents, management companies and stuff, because obviously you have to be slotted into a release fixture. So yeah, everybody works backward from that once you confirm the studio times.
Okay. When the way you all had to record for during the pandemic, do you feel like on the individual tracks or even your individual vocals and stuff like that, do you feel like it brought more to it, or do you feel like, or how different was it from the original? Did y'all normally meet up at the studio and you all record at the same time, or did y'all still did individuals but you're all?
Well, no, we'd written together, and we'd obviously back backward and forward via Dropbox and what have you, and then being in a live studio, we get to practice stuff backstage and in sound checks. Yeah, but it was basically one person in the studio at a time. And well, unless I was there to kind of help supervise, I was there. I'd pop in. I was there for Anabelle to advise her about additional vocals and experiment with stuff. But generally, everybody knows the material before we go into the studio. It will take a little bit of a little rearranging, I think. Sometimes that's just natural. The fact you get in with a producer, and as you go along, opportunities spring up, and yeah, you might one day take a track home and realise, hey, presto, it's a great idea for it. I think we should really extend this part or what have you. And the producer's always privy to that kind of information as well. He's always making suggestions how to improve stuff. And like I say, the pandemic afforded us that extra time.
I'd imagine as well that it also brought a different energy just from being cooped up and like to some degree just that negative pensive, like I need to do something. And so maybe it was just a bit more focused and a bit more like.
Well, we had plenty of time. We weren't working proper days really. We were working from 11 till 6. So half days. And
that's a half day?
Huh?
That's a half day?
Yeah, in a studio it's a half day, yeah.
You normally do 14 hours?
No, we'd normally work, about 16 hours a day in the studio.
Oh, wow.
Especially if it was a residential studio. Not that many people go into residential studios anymore. I don't think there's that many left. But we used to back in the day. I used to enjoy singing from I'd start mid-afternoon, do a little bit before dinner, and then carry on after dinner, probably from 9 o'clock through to about 3 in the morning.
Yeah, I imagine you're riding off of that energy and you're wanting to keep it going. And
Yeah,
you don't want to keep breaking it up. Yeah, okay.
And it was always better in these big, vast residential places where everybody'd have their own chalets, so their own rooms, and there'd be like a games room and stuff. You want to keep away from that, and the later in the evening it was, the better for me. I've had to move everything around since then because Scott Atkins, the producer we've used for the last 4 albums, actually, he prefers daytime work, so I've had to get used to that. But when you're in a studio anyway, time is irrelevant.
Yeah. Well, you're creating something dark and stuff. It should be at night. You shouldn't be doing this in the morning. You can
No,
it's be in the sunlight.
It quite ring well, does it?
So the artwork, I still find, like, I was going through all the albums and like I'm still just amazed, and I'm glad too that you've kept that theme going of like having artwork that matches the album, but then on top of that, just artwork that's typically really in depth and a lot going on. It's not just a simple circle with something off. There's always details. And then looking at the artwork for this album, it's fantastic and it's crazy, and I think it lines up fairly well with the entire theme of the album, and I think the artist did a very, very damn good job. And man, there's just so much with it. If we can put it up, that the little ant creature or the insect.
Absolutely. I mean, the artwork was created by Arthur Bozins, who was responsible for the previous 2 albums, and we kind of see it as an overarching triptych. I'm talking of triptychs. The album covers loosely based on Anonymous Bosch's The Garden of Earthly Delights, and that would be the right hand of that triptych, which is the Hellscape. And there's a hawk-headed lord, like satanic figure sat on the throne, that we incorporate into the album artwork with this kind of insectile look to it. Also incorporated is the Tower of Babel, the legendary mythical tower that was built by man to ascend to God, and that's a flame. It kind of very much represents mankind's downfall. And in a biblical context as well. I've always been a massive fan of the contemporary Dutch artists, Bosch and I think there's a Bruegel behind me there. Look, where is it? There.
What's
So
his
yeah,
name?
I really enjoy the artwork, and obviously Arthur has done a walkthrough throughout the entire booklet, so it's not just one piece he's done that's replicated a dozen times. We also work with Dan Goldsworthy, who's an extremely good graphic designer who laid out the booklet, added some illustrations of his own. He's a guy responsible for laying out a lot of our merchandise as well. So we've got a really good team about us, and yeah, I think the depicting the imagery that's portrayed in the lyricism through the medium of art and video and stage presence and photo shoots, I think that's important. I know some bands don't, but you know, we kind of veer toward the cinematic. And if you do it, I think, yeah, there you go. There's a little.
Well, I was noticing too that like the symbolism is extreme with it too, because not only is it him sitting on a throne, but it also resembles a hourglass, and so that's a representation of the coming end. You know.
Yeah, of course, yeah, about how time is fleeting, and that's kind of the maxim behind the album title. It sounds very bleak and detrimental and nihilistic, but there's hope in the title, because it's actually inferring that if there is no grand overarching plan for humanity, no God, no spiritual realm that we all ascend to, then we just have to make use of our time while we have it, see it as a gift, see evolution as a step to be taken and to be enjoyed, and with an air of positivity as well. I think respectfully enjoyed, you know, like leaving up to the planet and the footprint we leave, respectful of the people that will come after us.
Sure.
Rather than fucking it all up as we seem to be doing.
It also brings an element of like, regardless of religious or anything, it's just putting in that pinstone of reality. Like, don't forget that there is an end. There is a start and end to your life, to purpose, your purpose, and individuals, and as such. And so, just don't be living it so mindlessly. Like, have something you're bringing to the table. Have, you know, like you're saying, like, add to and don't take away. You know,
yeah, I think
if we're evolving into a greater thing, like,
yeah, I think that's the message that the vehicle carries. Yeah.
Oh, hey, what was the Dutch artist's name you said there?
Hieronymus Bosch.
Oh, wow. Just gonna have to listen to that again later and try to get it. So the was there anything in this album that you had no intention of bringing? I know a lot of it's come as you go, and like you kind of feel like, oh, hey, we can do this again, or we can bring, you know, more solos or something like that. But was there anything, like, looking back on it, like, where the hell did this come from? But I love it. Like, I'm glad it's there.
Yeah, I guess we experimented in our own way. I don't know, it's very hard to answer. There's no game plan to writing an album. You sit down and, you know, musicians get together. Inspiration comes from all walks of life, from all scenarios, from the world around you, from places you visit, places you watch, things you see on TV, books you read, the environment. You know, you can never pin anything down. I mean, it would be very contrived, I think, if you tried to recreate the scenario in which an album is born. For example, if we tried to recreate something like Dusk and Embrace, it would fall flat on its face, because that album was born of a certain time, certain period in history, certain age group, certain influences that were prevalent at that particular moment in time, and aren't necessarily profound anymore, and a feeling that you garner from those outside influences. So yeah, I can never explain how things come, how things are formed. It's a natural progression. It's about the unity of 6 individuals writing together, and I guess the format in which they're actually existing at that point. Yeah, obviously, people ask, did the pandemic affect the album or influence the album? Yeah, of course it did, but it didn't influence the lyricism. The lyricism was also already about a fucked up world heading toward Armageddon, on the brink of existence. But the pandemic obviously afforded us the longevity of the studio time, and thus that helped create and furnish the album in its own way. But yeah, as for writing, you could never ever garner how to write a record. It's always comes, and that's why every album's different. Every album's important. Every album's a milestone. And everybody says, "What's your favorite album?" By Cradle of Filth, by your band, like, or favorite song. I'm like, I kind of love all my children equally.
Yeah, and I'd imagine as well, it's whatever you're feeling in the moment. If you're pissed off, you can't be saying like Led Zeppelin's "All My Love" is your favorite song. Like, you're pissed off, you want something heavy bashing you in the face, like, or vice versa. If you're in love, you're not going to be saying something like "Gilded Cunt." Like, you're not going to be saying that song when you're in love.
Hammer face, I think, works for both things.
Right.
Listen, I'm going to have to wrap it up quite quickly. I've got another interview starting in about 2 minutes.
Okay. Well, I just want to ask 2 things, I guess, and then we can call it quit. Is there anything that anything you wanted to add? Maybe is there something you really wanted to say about the album? You wanted maybe push up somebody in particular that really helped?
Not in particular. I mean, we owe a lot to our producer, Scott Atkins. I actually saw him yesterday afternoon for the first time in a while, because we're working on some material at the moment, one of which is a collaboration with a bigger artist. And I took him some vinyl over. He hadn't actually received any of this special limited edition vinyl for the new album. So I took some of that over, and then we discussed ideas, timelines for different things. We even discussed about when we're going in for our next album recording, just to be, ahead of the game. So I just want to mention his name, Scott Atkins, because he's an amazing producer, a very good friend of mine. He's actually just had a baby with the keyboardist in my other band. Well, she's not in the band anymore, but she used to be the keyboardist for the band Devilment. And they actually met when we were recording the album, The Great and Secret Show at the studio. So yeah, there's good ties there. And he's almost like the 7th member of the band. Just the fact you can rely on him for suggestions, and he's not one of these people that blows smoke up your ass either. He'd be quite on the ball if he was saying, "Danny, you know what? That's absolutely shit. No, it is. You can't keep that in there." It's not one of those people that says to Lars Ulrich, "Yeah, that tinny drum sound, brilliant. Put it on the album." And for that, I really respect him. So yeah, I just wanted to mention him because sometimes he gets overlooked. This time we even put "Produced by Scott Atkins" on the back of the CD, just so people are more aware of his involvement with the record.
Maybe just name the next album Scott Atkins.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, I did have 2 questions I did want to ask you, and then after that, there won't be really an outro, and we'll just edit up everything out. But okay, so is there any lyric or harmony or any sort of piece of music that you've held on to for several years now that you just haven't found a place for it? Right? It could be something.
Yeah. There's always things like that, loose ends that need tying up. I can remember in the past, for example, straight off the top of my head, there was a riff for the track Nemesis that became the chorus that just didn't work with anything until that one magic moment where you went, you know what? this isn't a key. This would work. This isn't the right tempo, right placing, right atmosphere. You know, it's like that missing piece of the puzzle that you find underneath the coffee table.
And it's that sense of relief, like, oh, I finally fucking solved it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alrighty. And then what song of yours throughout the years, and you have a plethora, what song do you feel you wish had more attention brought to it? Like there's several songs that everyone always mentions when they talk about Cradle of Filth. Which one do you feel like really should have been in those talkings with the rest?
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say a particular song, but I think the album Godspeed on Devil's Thunder, which was our album, it was like a sister album to Cruelty and the Beast. Obviously, it was a lot later. We actually released in 2008. Fucking hell, that was like 13 years ago now. That seems incredible. But yeah, first album that our drummer Marthus was part of as well. And it often gets overlooked. People say, oh yeah, I lost interest in Cradle after, I guess I'm really stupid. I lost interest in Cradle when they sold out after their demos. And but anyway, yeah, sometimes it gets vastly overlooked in our back canon. And yeah, I'm particularly proud of the album. It's more death metal affair. It's very dark. The reason it was made like that was because the subject matter. It's about Gilles de Rais, the French nobleman who was once ally to Joan of Arc, and after her death, he expended a huge amount of money. He had, he's had lots of castles. He waged war in the name of the King of France, and basically he turned to sorcery, witchcraft, demonology to try and bolster his dwindling fortunes, and eventually went to kidnap and child murder and child rape. I mean, it's brutal, and it's a very fit accompanying like chapter. If you consider Cruelty and the Beast is about Elizabeth Bathory, who's another notable Middle Ages, for want of a better word, serial killer. So it's a very good accompaniment to that, almost like the brother to the sister. And at times, yeah, it often gets overlooked. People hear it sometimes and go, "Oh my god, I never, I didn't listen to Cradle for ages, and I heard this album. I skip this record, and I hear it and go, wow, I'm really impressed. It's really good. I like it. It's a very dark album."
Yeah, I think he kind of educated me a little bit on that, because I thought he was already doing that type of stuff while Joan was alive. But
No,
I didn't realize it was after.
After her death. He was kind of in love with Joan of Arc, but not more in a platonic spiritual way, seeing her as the essence of God. And with her death, he felt like he was, she was the closest thing he could get to that was a form of divinity. And when she died, he felt that was turned away, so he kind of went the other way. He went more to the...
Didn't one of his not followers or someone that was with him, didn't they document a lot of the stuff he was doing? Because I feel like I read that. So I remember him talking about
scripts that were, whether they were documented or not, they were all transcribed at his trial. And we actually annotated them and used those for the narrative that Doug Bradley undertook. So yeah, that was one of the inclusions of Doug Pinhead Bradley, lead Cenobite from the Hellraiser series. He voiced Gilles de Rais. And an interesting fact, thanks Doug, but he was the second choice because originally Tony Todd of Candyman fame was narrating the album, and he actually narrated the parts, but stormed out of the studio because his management hadn't told him exactly what the part was about. And I think that he got confused, thinking that we were some strange death metal band that were just writing these really perverse parts for him. Where in actual fact, they were historically accurate, if not annotated. So they was, trial transcripts, and he wasn't really aware of that. And there's a funny moment, because I still have the one original disc where all his parts were being done in the studio, where he actually goes, "Oh fuck this," and walks out the studio. So yeah, sorry Doug for being second best, but he was, Doug took the mantle on without question, because obviously he realizes what kind of people he's working with. Anyway, listen, I really have to go now because I've got this guy buzzing me. And
sorry. Alrighty, well, hey, appreciate it, man. I hope you enjoyed it some degree. We'll probably chop it up and stuff. I guess we'll send y'all something just so maybe y'all want to add or take away. But appreciate it, man. I hope it keeps going well. I hope y'all do come back next year. Love to see you.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Yeah, looking forward to it as well.
Alrighty, appreciate it, Danny. You have a good one.
Yeah, take care. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. We hope you've enjoyed this Comic Crusaders production. For real-time news on all things pop culture, please feel free to follow us on social media. For articles, original content, merchandise, and more, please go to www.comiccrusaders.shop. Also follow along with all of the websites in the Comic Crusaders family. As always, if you like this content, please click like and subscribe to the Comic Crusaders YouTube channel.